Hi there, welcome to 60 Matthews. I'm Matthew, and today I'm going to give you 5 tips for building out your camper van. Now, this doesn't have to pertain to just camper vans. It could apply to truck campers, RVs, any kind of small space that you're building out. But I've built out 2 minivans, so that's what I can speak about the best. I've designed a ton of tiny spaces over the years, and I've watched thousands of videos of trailer homes, vans, truck campers, trailer houses, shipping container houses, a lot. Just a lot of alternative living spaces. And every single video still fascinates me because it shows off the little nuances of people's personalities. I love seeing what's important to people, what they keep around, and how they make their space work with what they're into. With almost every build I find, there's something creative that I've just never thought of before. So if you are struggling with the design or the build of your van, or truck camper, or shipping container home, or tiny house on a trailer, hopefully these 5 tips can help. Tip number 1, plan. I spent months on the design for my first van, and the only way that I was able to do it was with the program SketchUp. I was able to go in and replicate the space that I had to work with within the minivan, and then I could test out the different sizes of things, like how big I could make my desk, I could figure out the positions of everything, and if something didn't work, I was able to delete it, I could replace it, I could easily move stuff around without having to do that in real life. So the designing and the planning for me was essential. In the later iterations of my design, whenever I had a kind of final product to work with, I listed out every single item that I use on a daily or a weekly basis. Everything from my toothbrush, to my shoes, to my kitchen utensils, to my bookshelf, to my herbs, to my spare blankets. Literally everything. And the only way that I was able to fit everything in my life into a minivan was because I planned a lot. Now, to be fair, designing tiny spaces is one of my passions. So I understand that you probably don't want to go this in depth. And the program SketchUp can be a little tricky to learn for new people. There's also another free 3D modeling program called Blender, which you might find a little easier to get into. And there's always good old-fashioned pencil and paper. And that could work for you just as well. I've seen several different no-build van designs. One of my favorites was this woman put up plastic Tupperware containers all on this side and all on the back, and then she didn't have a bed. She just laid down a bunch of foam and blankets on the floor and then just slept there. That way she had easy access to everything. She said she cooked mostly on the floor, and then she could clean it all up and have a little space to stretch and do a little bit of yoga and have a nice open space to meditate. It was just really homey. So your build doesn't have to be anything extravagant. You don't have to plan out every little tiny detail. I mean, I do, but you definitely don't have to. So before you just throw some stuff in a van, I strongly suggest you put a lot of thought and time into planning for what you want your layout to be. And on that note, time for tip 2. Expect those plans to change. Not only is it great to think about your design, it's also great to spend time looking at your design and refining every single thing you can. If it's possible, it's also great to spend time in the space to really get a feel for what everything is. Because whenever you're staring at a blank space or a model in a computer program, it's really hard to grasp what the reality is. Because a lot of the stuff that you think is going to work out great on paper is not going to work out in reality. For instance, whenever my girlfriend was building out her van, she had a couple of different layouts that she wanted to try out. So she put the bed on one side and then she put the desk on the other side. And by desk, I mean it was 2 chairs with a wooden board connecting them. But it was great. She was able to spend time with that setup and see what it would feel like. And what she realized was that she needed the space between the bed and the desk to be kind of a hallway. And when she was sitting on the bed, she had to stretch out to reach the computer. And it just wasn't that comfortable. And the more time she spent with that layout, the more she realized that the desk would actually be a lot better placed in front of the bed. So spend time with your designs. Like I said, I highly designed and refined my first van. And whenever I got on the road, half those design ideas went out the window. So with the second van, I made it a lot more of a blank canvas, and I knew that I could figure it out on the road. Like underneath my bed, I just have storage. And in my kitchen, I just have shelves and a box. This time around, I knew that things would find homes for themselves. So plan, but expect those plans to change. Tip 3, try stuff out. Like I said with my girlfriend's van, she just set up 2 chairs and a board to act as a desk. Whenever I was designing the build for this van, I used cardboard cutouts to kind of get a feel for dimensions and where everything would be best located. Like, this is where the bed will be, this is how long I can make the desk, this is where the kitchen will actually be, and it helped me to further visualize what the space will actually look like once it was all together. So it's good to have placeholders that will act as a representation of what stuff will actually be. Now, I should note here that the tip of trying stuff out is kind of the van life mentality. With my first van, I learned the importance of designing and refining. With my second van, I learned the importance of doing that, but also just going for it. Because you can get too much into your head. Trying to minimize this much can be pretty frightening, but it's also not as scary as you think. One of the things that helped me commit to this is that this is not permanent. This is not my forever home. So the decisions that I made for this van were not going to affect me for the rest of my life. I knew that van life was only going to last a year or 2 or maybe 5, but just because I made a decision about the van didn't mean that I was stuck with it for life. So as steps 1 and 2 are pretty important, step 3 is pretty crucial too. Now, tip 4, think of the build in every situation. In winter, in summer, in pouring down rain, in the middle of a drought, in the shaded areas of the country, in the deserts, literally every situation. And think of access points. Like, beds are really great for storage. There's a lot of square footage. You can fit a lot under a bed. However, I've seen a lot of minivan builds where the whole thing is just a bed and a lot of the storage is in the back. And if all of your storage that you need on a daily basis is under the bed, most of the time you won't be able to lift the hatch door from the inside. So if it's pouring down rain outside, you're gonna have to go out the side door, run around, lift the hatch up, and then access your storage. I learned this lesson with my first van when I put the kitchen in the back. Now, I was thinking about the build in every situation when I designed this. I needed to be able to access everything in the kitchen on the outside and on the inside. If it was pouring down rain outside, I still wanted full access to everything in my kitchen. But I put the refrigerator on the very bottom underneath the kitchen counter. And on the outside, accessing the refrigerator was super easy. Everything was just right there. But if I was on the inside, I was crawling underneath the counter to grab whatever I needed and then crawl back out with food in my hands. It was not ideal. It did not go as I expected, but it did dictate the availability of everything in this design. The refrigerator is right here, the sink is right here, most of my food is right here, most of my cooking appliances are underneath the bed and they're a lot more available on the outside. However, I can lift the bed up easily and access anything I want. So in your designing, in your planning, in your trying stuff out, think of the build in every situation. And tip number 5, be honest with yourself. This kind of pertains to minimalism in general, but it's definitely important when building out your van. Because when faced with the task of cutting out all the extra in your life, you really look at what's truly important to you. For instance, I love trying out art of all mediums. Music, paintings, clay sculptures, and not just sitting at a desk writing on a computer. However, I knew I wouldn't be able to fit my acoustic guitar, my bass guitar, my canvases, all of my clay supplies. I knew that I wouldn't be able to bring that along with me. So while I love doing these things, I had to be honest with myself and say, maybe I should focus my time on my YouTube channel and finally getting these books published. So you just need to be honest with who you are, what you love, and what you need. For instance, having plants in a van is a large hassle. They produce a lot of moisture, they need a lot of water, so in thinking about your own water rations, you have to take into account, will you be able to provide them enough sunlight, enough water? Will they be okay with being shaken around? There's just a lot to think about, but they're also great at cleaning the air and making the space feel a lot more like home. So if that's important to you, accept that. Or maybe you really like fashion and there's no way that you can have less than 10 pairs of shoes. But maybe your image is important. Maybe your fashion sense is vital to your well-being. Then don't feel guilty about keeping those 10 pairs of shoes. Find some way to make that work into your build. Your van will be perfectly designed to serve you. So allow yourself to hold on to the things that you love. And that way you'll be proud to show off your van and inherently yourself. Because ultimately the space in which you live is an extension of you. One of the weirdest feelings to me and one of the hardest sensations to describe was really whenever I got settled into van life. I was so proud and comfortable within the space that I created. I loved my first van. It was almost magical, I guess, to go to the grocery store and then as soon as I went to my car, I would open it up and I was home. It was a similar feeling to coming home from a long day's work, getting out of your car, unlocking the front door, throwing your keys on the table and then passing out on the couch. Only I had that experience in the parking lot. There was a certain pride in my build that never faded. It never ceased with my first van, and it still persists in my second van. I can still sit on my bed, look around, and feel so elated that I did this. And you will have that feeling too. But that's all I have for this week. I hope I've helped you out in some way. I hope I've given you some ideas to finish out your van build. I would love to see it. If you have it documented, leave it in the comments down below. I really, really hope you're doing well right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.